not now ready for the second speech, and it will be a bit different from any other speeches we usually look here in the Toastmasters. First of all, it will be a speech from an advanced manual. The manual is called the Professional Speaker. It's longer, as we already know. It will run from 15 to 20 minutes. And it's also supposed to be a keynote speech. So all of us will need to play a role. All right, are you ready? So imagine that every one of us have just arrived in Vancouver, Canada. And we are at the 2017 Toastmasters International Convention. Okay, everybody there? Good. We are sitting at our dinner table, and yes, the guy next to you just stole your bread plate because he doesn't know better. And an announcer now announces the keynote speaker for the event. We are so excited today to bring you your speaker for the evening. She has been a Toastmaster for 4 years and joined to overcome her shyness of talking about her business. An active member who has served various officer positions, she ended up searching out the best career paths and used the techniques she has learned from Toastmasters to help catapult her new business into a thriving enterprise. Because of her experience in Toastmasters, she has created a legacy for her family, and she's here today to share her story with us. With her keynote speech titled, "I Wrote My Way Out," please help me welcome Carrie Glenn.
Well, thank you. Isn't she wonderful?
Yes.
To the most wonderful Toastmaster of the day, who, from the day that I ever stepped foot in a Toastmaster meeting, has been kind, gracious, and always showed me the way. Thank you, Tatiana. And welcome, esteemed Toastmasters. And I hear we have a few guests that flew all the way to Vancouver just to see what it's like and visit us. So great, thank you. Wasn't the mignon just delicious? And I heard about that plate. I think that might have been one of you guys over there. It was Kyle. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have to work that out, girl. You know, it's a wonderful thing when people can get together as a group and make something out of themselves more than what they were when they got there. I'm going to take you on a little journey, though. We'll go this way. Many years ago, back in the 70s, there was a little girl. Her name was Jaylene at the time. Later, she grew up to be Carrie Glenn. But at the time, she was Jaylene Larson. Go figure. And she got the role in the play, the leading role in the play. And she was super, super excited. She had before played various roles. It was a play, it was a Christmas play. You must have made a mistake. This can't be Christmas. They had gone on several years. And she was usually one of the children. And she got to play in the scenes and the parts. But this time, she got the part as the angel. She was very proud of that part. Well, she learned a few lessons along the way in that play because it was kind of lonely being the angel and the lead role. You had a lot of lines to learn, so all your time was spent learning the lines. And then it was time to act, and you had to wait through the whole Act 1 to finally get to come out in Act 2 and be the angel and take these kids on the journey from, you know, Bethlehem and who baby Jesus really was, which was the point of the play. So this little Jaylene, she comes out on the stage, and she starts doing her lines. And she's carrying this scene. And she's going back and forth with the kids, and the lines are back and forth. Blast, 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 and she's got it. But something happens. the Cherry Hall Foundation. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. I believe one of our members out here has been there before, or two. And it's a tiny, tiny, intimate little theater house. You can see the audience. You can almost hear them breathing. And she notices this. And all of a sudden, she cuts through the rest of the entire scene and ends it so that she can turn around and try to bolt out the door before throwing up all over the stage. She doesn't make it. So she goes and she runs to the green room where she throws up again. For any of you who are theater goers, now you might know where the phrase green room comes from. So this little girl is that one right there. Cute there, but not so cute that night. I'll tell you though what happened. From that point on, she had stage fright every single time she had to get up and speak. Now she grew up to be Carrie, so I'll go ahead and talk in the first person now. I grew up with terrible stage fright, horrible stage fright, literally to the point where you know what happens. So I couldn't eat before any kind of performance, and I loved the theater, I loved the stage. I wasn't a professional actor, but I acted, and I did speeches, and I just was sick every time. And then one day I signed up for improv, and it was with Jerry Orton, who's a local guy down in the Monterey Bay area. Many of you might know him. He had a little group of women called the Women of Whimsy, and he asked me to join. And I said, Jerry, you know I'm not funny, right? Why do you want me? He said, no, we love your energy, we want you to join. You know I can't do improv. I can act. Give me lines, I will learn them, but I can't just get up and talk. No, Carrie, you'll be great. Get in there. So I did, and it was horrible, and I hated it. I did terribly. I suffered through the whole thing. And one day, I didn't get stage fright anymore. And what had happened was, along that journey of learning and working with him, he had this phrase called shoulda, woulda, coulda. Because every night we'd end our night and we'd say, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. And he would always stop and say, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Do it next time. Don't worry about it. You're just acting. You're just people. So somehow in that, I don't know how that cured me, but it did. And from that point on, I only got kind of nervous, and I learned kind of not to eat too much and not too nervous. So I was cured. I was cured of that. Now let me ask you all, raise your hand if you get scared to speak in public. Raise your hand if you get scared, even if you're not necessarily doing a speech. Maybe you're performing a role. Maybe it's a counter or the timer. Raise your hand.
Since you said the timer.
Notice our timer raises her hand, right? So we have something in common. This is what makes Toastmasters, all of you who came here, this is what makes us really unique. The thing that we have in common is every single one of us, every week or so, get up and we face our fears. And we don't just face our fears, we face the number one fear in America. Over death. Public speaking is the number one fear. And we get up every week and we face that fear. That's what brings us together. That's what bonds us. Ah, but is it? Because actually, there's something else. Oh, that bonds us. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on a mast to wave? Courage. What makes the elephant charge its tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dusk? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What makes the sphinxes the seventh wonder? Courage. What makes the dawn come up like thunder? Courage. What makes the Hottentot so hot? What puts the ape in the apricot? And what do they got that I ain't got?
Courage.
You could say that again. But now the question is this. We've got the courage. We've got our bonds. We've got our commonalities. Now, are you Toastmasters, even you visitors who might be thinking about joining Toastmasters, are you really ready to release the power of Toastmasters in your life? That's the question. If you're ready to if you're ready to release that power, there's a few things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the opportunities that you will find. We're going to talk about the impact that you will have, that you will see in your life. And then I'm going to give you an invitation to personally join me in releasing that power, the power of Toastmasters into your life. So, the opportunity. The opportunity that we find in Toastmasters is we get to hone our skills. Now this means we actually get to decide if we need to work on our body movement. I have somebody watching out for me today for one of my nasty body movements. He'll let me know if I did it. But see, where else can we do that on a weekly basis or monthly, depending on how often we speak? We get to have somebody constantly help us to hone that skill. So we have that repetition of weekly coming back and coming back and coming back. And then we also have the opportunity to fail safely. We get to mess it all up in a very safe environment. There's no cost. There's no one we're going to hurt. Now, sometimes when we mess it all up, our actions do cause turmoil in the group because, maybe you called in sick the day of, or maybe, you were supposed to be Toastmaster and you can't. So there's rumbles, but we all manage to get through it. And no one's life is completely ruined. But it does kind of, put something in your mind when you fail safely about failing. And you kind of learn that you don't want to if you can avoid it, which is a whole other thing we'll talk about a little bit later. Also, you get to craft your individual skills. Because yes, we all go through the 10 speeches. But after that, we have the advanced manuals. And the advanced manuals are what take us from being competent speakers, because now that we finished the 10, we're competent, we're good enough. Now we get to dig in and master a specific thing. For instance, there's some Toastmasters who are working through their public speaking manuals, and they're mastering how to do a keynote speech. So we get to play with those little individual interests. The other opportunity that I love about Toastmasters is we get to help others. We get to assume leadership roles, we get to mentor and help each other, and then we are part of the community. Now by assuming leadership roles, that's our CL manual. And oftentimes we don't place a heavy notice or we don't really notice how much is involved in the CL manual. We kind of just do it because we check it off. It's one of those things. But it's actually pretty important, and you learn some pretty cool stuff. So that's our leadership track is in that. And also we get to work with each other. We get to maybe join as an officer, and then you're putting on events or you're meeting with each other, and so you're doing things for the club. So that can be very fun. Training is always a great thing, especially if you help with that. And then the greatest thing I think though is that we're part of a community. Like I know that I could pick up a phone and call Monique if I needed something, and I knew that she was the one who could help me with that thing. I know I could pick her up. Yeah, I can pick her up. So Monique, what you doing Friday night? Wait, we're both coughing. Uh-oh. So I know I could call her and say, hey, I need some help. Or at least get some gardening advice, right? You know, we're a community of people who care about each other, care about the world, care about bettering each other. We care about helping each other communicate. And without communication, what are we as people? We live to communicate. All we do is communicate. Not all of it's verbal, but it's what we do. And so as Toastmasters, we're actually helping each other communicate. I mean, what greater power than that is there? And then you get to show the real you every single week. How many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, you can if you want, but you don't have to. How many of you ever put on your mom hat, your chauffeur hat, your I gotta be at work and smile hat, your I gotta be a good son hat, oh, I gotta be a good daughter hat, you know, and you have to let go of whatever you're doing. Well, at Toastmasters, when you're working, yeah, you kind of want to behave, and you know, you're not going to just come in like a, but you get to be you. You get to open yourself up and talk about the things that you care about, and you get to be around people that you care about, and you get to say what you want, unfiltered. Some of us take full advantage of that. And we love her for it. So during this, you also get to practice showing up. We come. Every time we come, we grow. We show up and we grow. We also get to bring that message. Whatever it is that is in us that's dying to come out, or maybe it's just we pick a topic and that's what comes out. But we get to bring it, whatever it is. We get to share our message every time we come. Even when you're just, listen to that. Even when you're just a timer or just an all counter, you get to show your personality and your fun or your serious sides. When you stand up and announce your roles and count up your ballots, every single role we get to come up and show ourselves. And then during that process, because of what you do, you're seen and you're heard. How many of you, and again, actually I'm going to ask you to be a little bit brave this time. How many of you have ever or ever feel like you're not seen or heard?
Here?
Ever in life.
Oh.
You go through life and you just kind of feel, I'm honest, I mean, there's times I feel like, oh gosh, no one really hears what I'm saying. It doesn't happen much, but it happens. And so this is where we get to go through that. So we hone our skills, we help others, and we show who we are. Now why should I tell you this? Who am I to be the one to tell you all this? Well, I joined Toastmasters in 2013. And I did it, as our wonderful Toastmaster said, to get over my fear of talking about my business. Now, it didn't help. Sorry to say. I realized that fear came from a different place other than communication issues. But I kept coming, even though it didn't help, thinking it would help, but it didn't. What I discovered was that I was a terrible leader. I always thought I could be a great leader and I could be like, you're fired. You're fired. Oh my gosh, but give me an evaluation? And I had to tell someone they did this right and this, you could have done this better. And oh my gosh, my knees, my face, I mean, I'd be red. People were like, what is wrong with that girl? Or they didn't know because thank God I had acting behind me and I could hide that. All right? So I'm the girl who went from not quite knowing what I'm doing here and not having a career that was working to suddenly having a career because I took all my Toastmaster skills and I rolled them up and I put them into everything that I do. So one of my jobs is to critique people's novels. Like, how do you tell someone, well, that's great, but that part really sucks? You can't. So what do? You do the sandwich method. You tell them how wonderful it is. You tell them, now I'm going to give you some suggestions that will help it. And then you end with, and by the way, what you said here, what you said here, what you said here. Fabulous. So that's why I'm the one that's qualified to tell you about these things. So now, I'm actually going to give you an invitation today. I'm going to invite you to join me in releasing the power of Toastmaster in your life. So I'm going to ask you all to stand up. And I'm going to ask you all to say, I release
I release
the power
the power
of Toastmasters
of Toastmasters
in my life.
in my life.
And I'm going to ask you to do it again. I release
The
the power
of
Toastmasters in my life.
life.
Together, I release the
the
power
power of Toastmasters in my life.
You may sit and enjoy the rest of your evening. I believe that we are having creme brulee for dessert, so it will be out soon. And I just want to thank you all, and I hope that as you go out for the next few days during this event, that you will seize those opportunities, that you will look for all the ways that you can be impacted being here. And then when you go home and you go back to your Toastmasters clubs, you inspire them to seize the power and release the power of Toastmasters in their lives. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to evaluate Carrie's keynote address, and I might point out first, this is from an advanced manual that was referred to earlier, the professional speaker, and it has 5 speeches in it, like all advanced manuals do. The keynote address is number 1, and that's what Carrie was speaking from today. You were very creative in imagining that we were all in British Columbia, which is where the annual meeting this year will be held of the International Toastmasters Group. And for us to imagine as an audience that you were to inspire us and that you were such a star that you were giving the keynote address, I thought that was very creative. A little elusive on my part to imagine myself ever being there, but certainly a great idea. Some things you did very well. You had very good body movement, and you demonstrated that very nicely, particularly at the end when you had us all get up and rah, rah, rah. Very effective, high energy. Didn't see any of the concerns that you mentioned to me. I also liked the fact that you shared your vulnerability with us, and was very creative to use your childhood name with a childhood photograph to describe the terror that you felt in doing that play. And it, I think, brought us all very close to you as fellow human beings and fellow speakers. I also liked that section in the middle, particularly where you had a series of about 8 points where you used courage. And you had that down magnificently, so it all flowed beautifully. Then getting to the leadership portion of being a good Toastmaster was very effective. The fact that there's much more to being a good Toastmaster and being a world champion of public speaking than just speaking, as being a leader. How could that have been made better? A few ideas. First, I think you could have acted out the terror of the little girl a little more without actually throwing up. You could have had the frozen eyeballs and the shakiness and some of the classic manifestations of fear that we all have as a public speaker, maybe shrieking down behind the lectern. That could have been acted out and would have been more powerful. Second, you could have slowed down at a number of times. When you lost us a little bit was when you became a little anxious and you weren't quite as sure where you were going. You ended up with saying "you guys" a few times, "you know" 3 times, "kind of" about 3 times, "like" a couple of times. And that was during these couple of sections where you appeared to me to be a little nervous. I'm getting extra time, I'm sure, from the time, because this is a 20-minute speech, but we didn't have to address that to begin with. And I'm sure that the Toastmaster would give me more than 2 to 3 minutes. Because one of my hobbies is to make that timer over there behave. But she's sometimes elusive. And then finally, I think that it's important to recognize that, to all of us to recognize that she gave what I would consider to be an early practice speech, if she actually were giving this big a speech. There was a Toastmaster that was runner-up, and Arnie can maybe help me with his name. I almost have it on the tip of my tongue, but I remember seeing him come, Rory Vaden. He finished second in the World Championship. And he came to one of our clubs to give a practice speech. He gave 409 practice speeches around the country. He was from the East Coast. So not bad for your first go-round. And I can't wait to hear your second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Madam Toastmaster.